first hand here, we get 10-3 offsuit in the small blind. It's folded to us. Yeah, I'm basically, I usually actually don't shove this. I think nowadays in most of the higher buying tournaments, people are good enough in the big blind and calling enough that this is definitely not a shove, and this is definitely not in the Nash range for shoving. And furthermore, I think a lot of players actually call more than Nash. So I mean, for the longest time, I remember you could just shove any two in the small blind because no one called stuff like Queen 9 offsuit, and you could just shove any two cards and make a profit. But nowadays, I actually feel like in most of the higher buy-in online tournaments, people actually call too wide in the big blind against a small blind shove. People are over adjusting. So usually I actually hate making this shove in a higher buy-in tournament, especially early on in the tournament. So, but here I'm definitely not folding here. It's only a $22 buy-in tournament, and you know, it's a 4,000 person tournament. We're down to 18, and I'm 100% sure this guy's gonna be just very clinging onto his tournament life. So, you know, it is possible he's also, you know, I talked about this in the last video, when it's deep in a big tournament with a small buy-in where there's going to be a lot of players who's never been here before in their life, players are in general going to be tight, but players will also sometimes be irrational. And sometimes he's going to just feel a burst of adrenaline with his like 10-7 offsuit and call me here. So it is possible he's going to be calling extremely light, but for the most part, I think this is definitely still a profitable shove. It's not in the Nash range, but I think he's just going to be folding way too much most of the time that I can definitely shove any two cards profitably. Unfortunately, he wakes up with pocket aces, so that's okay. So we lose this one. It kind of ruins our image a bit, but not much we can do. Okay, the next hand, under the gun +1 opens 3x. I mean, we could do something here, but I mean, I think it's basically pretty terrible. I think when he opens 3x, especially late in tournament, I feel like he's usually just got something like ace king or like a very strong hand, pocket jacks, ace queen suited, and he doesn't really want to play post flop. He just wants to take down the pot. That's why he's raising 3x. So there's no reason to really mess with him. I think calling and playing in position is something that's possible. I think, you know, I think in general, when a player raises 3x, they're probably not that good a player. So I don't think it's terrible here to call and play post flop, but in general, I'm not that hood. And in general, I'm sort of a nit and I prefer folding instead of pursuing players and going after them. So I think a lot of good tournament players would call here, especially when they know they've got a big advantage post flop. But I'm a nit and I don't like going for it. So I just fold, which I think is the fine default play. Here it's folded to us. I'm opening this every time. Big blind calls. I continuation bet about a third of the pot, and I think that's about right for this type of flop. It's pretty safe, but there is a flush draw. You know, if it was rainbow, I'd probably bet like a quarter of the pot. So I continuation bet, get check raised, standard fold. I think he probably just has a 10. I mean, I basically, I mean, he could be bluffing, but I'm definitely not making a play for it there. Okay, next hand, we just fold. I guess we can see what happens. Pretty standard. Okay, we fold 10-4 offsuit. So this youth poker guy seems to like making it 3x as his standard raise size. Okay, next hand, we get 8-9 suited here. Yeah, once again, I know a lot of hood tournament players would just be totally taking advantage of their big stack and playing this hand. I definitely think calling is okay, but I feel like there's a decent amount of good squeezing stacks, large man 777, donut, and I remember from an earlier hand, I was at Donut's table, and he likes re-raising, so he was pretty aggressive. And yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that can go on. So I just fold here, which is once again nitty. I could be going for it, but I mean, I've already had two hands where I showed that I have a pretty bad image, and I think to play hands like 8-9 suited profitably here, you really need a good image where you can make a lot of semi-bluffs with gut shots and backdoor draws, and like, you know, you really need people to believe you, and I feel like people aren't believing me that much. So I just fold, which I think is fine.